Okay, the last section that you need to do for this week is pay the way. You're looking at who paid for your explorer to be able to take their trip. Um, some of you may have found this in your research. Some of you also maybe need to pull in some background knowledge to help you or see if you can find it in another resource. Um, for Columbus, I was able to find it in my articles. I found that the Queen of Spain was who paid for his trip for him. When you're researching, your explorer possibly could have paid for their trip, but there's a good chance that someone else needed to give them money or funding for them to be able to do it. Um, I know I've talked with some of you about like astronauts, wondering who funded their trip. In that case, you might need to use some background knowledge and make some connections of your own a little bit. Where was it NASA? Was it um, a space agency for another country who probably paid for the trip? If you're really having trouble with this section and figuring out who funded for the trip, you can turn to Google. If Google doesn't help, shoot me an email and I'll see if I can help with this section in any kind of way. But once you have that information, again, you're going to the Pay the Way green box in paragraphology, and that's where you're drafting this up in a paragraph as best as you can. This section may be a little bit shorter than some of the others, but you just want the reader to know who paid for your explorer to be able to make their expedition. Something I learned in my research is Christopher Columbus spent many years trying to convince different people to fund his trip for him. A lot of people thought that his estimates were wrong, that Asia was further away than what he estimated, that it would take longer than what he estimated. So kings and queens weren't willing to give him money to go on his trip. Eventually, though, because he didn't give up, he was able to convince the Queen of Spain to give him money for his trip. So with this section, do the best that you can. Um, try to make some connections. Try to find it in your research of who could have possibly given money to your explorer for them to be able to fund their expedition. Okay. Once you have Pay the Way drafted, you are technically at the point where you need to be by the end of the week. If you wanted to work ahead, I'm totally okay with that. You don't need to, but if you wanted to just keep going, you are welcome to do that. We are looking at the end of next week trying to have the draft finished. So if you want to keep going this week, you can move on to the video for the next section. Or if you want to stop here, you're at the point you need to be by the end of the week. You'll pick up with the next section and the video Monday when you get started.